Hi, I'm Cassidy Shaffer, and this is part 5 of the Linux files tutorial. In this video, we'll be discussing redirection. In Linux, programs and commands can contain both inputs and outputs. These are called streams. It is possible to redirect these inputs and outputs of a program from or to a different file. There are 3 types of streams. Standard input, which by default is input from the keyboard. Standard output, which by default is output sent to the screen, and standard error, which by default is error output sent to the screen. There are 3 types of redirection. Input redirection tells Linux that inputs is coming from a file instead of from the keyboard, and we use the less than sign in front of the file name to let Linux know this is happening. Output redirection tells Linux to write the output to a file instead of displaying it on the screen, and we use the greater than sign in front of the file name to let Linux know this is happening. We use one greater than sign if we want Linux to overwrite the file if it already exists, or if we want Linux to create the file if it does not already exist. And we use 2 greater than signs if we want Linux to append the file that already exists instead of writing over it. Error redirection tells Linux that if an error occurs, then we want the error to be written to a file, and we use a 2 followed by the greater than sign in front of the file name in order to let Linux know this is happening. Now let's look at all the types of redirection in a Linux terminal. So here I have a Linux terminal open, and the first redirection we talked about was inputs. Now, the most common one that we use to redirect is to mail someone. Now, the command for mailing someone is mail their email address, which I'll just use my own. Okay, and then we're going to use the less than sign. Yeah, I had that right. And then the file name we want to put into the text of the email document. Now, if I had mail set up in Linux, I would have just sent myself an email containing text that was in the input example file. Now let's talk about output redirection. Now, let's say we want to put in a document the list of all the files in our current directory. Now, if I just type in ls, it's just going to list the 3 files that I have on the screen. Now, let's put it in an actual file. So we have ls greater than sign, and then I'm going to put it in output example.txt, and you'll notice that that's not in my current working directory, and so it will create a file called output example, and it has the lists of files in the current directory. Now if I display that file, you can see, hey, this is the list of the files in my current working directory. Now say I want to append to that file a more detailed list of my working directory. So I'll do ls, option L, like we talked in a previous video, 2 greater than signs, and then the file name. Now let's display the file again. And as you can see, here's my original list of files, and then right below it is a more detailed list of the files in my working directory. Now let's talk about error redirection. Now let's say I wanted to change the permissions on the file called folder. Well, what if there might be an error? I want to put that in a document. So I'll do the greater than sign, and then error example.txt is my file name. Now we can see that there's not going to be an error from this because I provided a correct number for the octal method, but if I display my file, you can see there's nothing in there. Now let's say I forgot to add the numbers or use the symbolic method. I just put chmod folder. And then I'm going to redirect again to see if an error occurs. Now let's list the file again. And as you can see, an error did occur. Okay, so I'll see you in the next video.